Welcome back to the channel, my lovely friends. I'm really glad you're here, because today's story is one that challenges what we think we know about coins, value, and history. We are going to talk about a coin that most people would never imagine could be extraordinary at all, a humble 1-cent coin from Canada dated 1971, bearing the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II and marked with the initials KG. On its face, it is a simple penny, something that once bought almost nothing and today often sits forgotten in jars or old collections. Yet when we look deeper, when we explore errors, mistakes, minting irregularities, and rare possibilities, this small coin opens the door to theories and discussions of value that stretch into unimaginable territory, even into figures like $1,770,000,000, far beyond its tiny face value. At first glance, the 1971 Canadian 1-cent coin seems completely ordinary. It carries the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, a design that symbolized continuity and stability for Canada during a time of global change. The reverse shows the familiar maple leaves, an instantly recognizable national symbol. The coin was struck during a period when Canada was still producing large numbers of cents for everyday circulation. These pennies were handled daily, spent casually, and rarely saved with care. That everyday use is exactly what makes the idea of extreme rarity so fascinating. The year 1971 was a significant one in Canadian history. The country was evolving economically and culturally, and its coinage reflected a blend of tradition and modernization. The Royal Canadian Mint was producing coins at a large scale, using industrial processes that were efficient but not immune to error. Even with strict quality control, the sheer volume of coins produced meant that some mistakes were inevitable. One of the most important things to understand about coin value is that rarity does not always come from low mintage numbers alone. Sometimes, rarity comes from unexpected errors that slip through unnoticed. A coin that deviates from its intended design, metal composition, or striking quality can become far more valuable than a perfectly made example. The 1971 Canadian 1-cent coin was typically struck in bronze, an alloy primarily composed of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. This metal composition itself introduces opportunities for variation. If the alloy mix was slightly off, the resulting coin could have unusual weight, color, or density. Such differences might seem insignificant at first, but in the world of numismatics, even small deviations can matter greatly. One of the most intriguing possibilities lies in planchet errors. Planchets are the blank metal discs that are struck into coins. If a planchet intended for another denomination or another composition accidentally entered the cent production line, the resulting coin would be something extraordinary. A 1971 1-cent coin struck on the wrong planchet would immediately become a major discovery. Its weight, thickness, and sound would differ from normal cents, and scientific testing could confirm its uniqueness. Another area of fascination involves striking errors. Coins are struck under enormous pressure, and if something goes wrong at that moment, the results can be dramatic. Off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered on the coin, are one example. Broad strikes, where the coin spreads outward because the collar fails to contain it, are another. Multiple strikes can occur if a coin is not ejected properly and is struck more than once. While minor versions of these errors are known, extreme examples are rare and highly desirable. Die errors also play a crucial role in discussions of extraordinary value. Dies are the engraved tools that impress the design onto the coin. If a die is damaged, cracked, or improperly prepared, it can transfer those flaws onto every coin it strikes. A double die, for example, occurs when the die receives more than one misaligned impression from the hub. This can cause doubling in letters, numbers, or design elements. If such a double die existed for the 1971 Canadian cent and was only used briefly, coins struck from it could be incredibly rare. Minting errors related to die wear are another possibility. As dies are used repeatedly, they can wear down, causing weak details, distorted lettering, or unusual textures. Sometimes dies develop cracks or chips, creating raised lines or blobs on the coins. These features, when dramatic and well-defined, can significantly increase collector interest. The initials KG on the coin add another layer of intrigue for collectors and storytellers alike. Any irregularity involving lettering, initials, or portrait details often draws special attention. If the initials appeared doubled, distorted, or partially missing due to die damage or hubbing errors, such a coin would stand out immediately. Conditio. Now my great history lovers, we're diving into the fascinating world of a small, often overlooked coin, the 1987 Canadian 1-cent piece bearing the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II and the initials KG. On the surface, this coin seems ordinary, almost insignificant, something that once jingled in pockets or sat quietly in jars. Yet behind its simple appearance lies a world of possibilities, mysteries, minting errors, and rare circumstances that have led some collectors and theorists to imagine values as high as $1,710,000,000, a staggering figure compared to its tiny face value. In 1987, Canada was well into a modern era of coin production. The Royal Canadian Mint was recognized internationally for its precision, innovation, and quality control. Millions of 1-cent coins were produced to serve daily commerce, and these coins were never intended to be collectibles. They were meant to be used, spent, and forgotten. That very expectation of uniformity is what makes the idea of errors and anomalies so captivating. When a system is designed for perfection, any deviation becomes noteworthy. The obverse of the 1987 Canadian 1-cent coin features Queen Elizabeth II, whose image had already appeared on Canadian coins for decades. By this time, her portrait symbolized continuity and stability. The reverse, with its twin maple leaves on a single twig, represented Canada itself, simple yet powerful. The initials KG, associated with the designer, appear as part of the coin's artistic identity, and even these small letters can become central to extraordinary stories when something goes wrong. The metal composition of the 1987 Canadian cent was primarily bronze, consisting mostly of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. This alloy gave the coin its familiar warm color and solid feel. However, metal composition is never perfectly uniform at the microscopic level. Variations in alloy mixing, temperature, and rolling can lead to subtle differences in weight, thickness, and surface texture. Most of these differences are too small to notice, but occasionally, they cross a threshold where they become visible and significant. One of the most compelling areas of possibility involves planchet errors. Planchets are the blank metal discs that are struck into coins. If a planchet intended for a different denomination, a different alloy, or even a different country accidentally entered the cent production line, the resulting coin would be extraordinary. A 1987 1-cent coin struck on an incorrect planchet would immediately stand out due to its unusual weight, color, or sound. Such errors are among the most exciting discoveries in numismatics because they represent a breakdown in the earliest stages of production. Another fascinating possibility lies in striking errors. Coins are struck under immense pressure, and if anything goes wrong at that moment, the results can be dramatic. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet is not properly aligned within the striking collar, resulting in a design that is shifted to one side. Broad strikes occur when the collar fails to contain the planchet, allowing the metal to spread outward. Multiple strikes can happen if a coin is not ejected properly and is struck more than once. While minor versions of these errors are known, extreme examples are rare and highly sought after. Die errors add yet another layer of intrigue. Dies are the engraved tools that transfer the coin's design onto the metal. Over time, dies wear down, crack, or chip. A cracked die can leave raised lines on the coin, while a chipped die can create raised blobs or distortions. One of the most dramatic die-related errors is the double die, which occurs when the die receives more than one misaligned impression from the hub. This results in visible doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements. If a double die existed for the 1987 Canadian 1-cent coin and was only used briefly before being replaced, coins struck from it could be extremely rare. The doubling might appear on the Queen's portrait, the date, the lettering, or even the small KG initials. Any visible doubling involving portrait details or designer initials would immediately attract intense interest from collectors. Minting anomalies related to die alignment are also worth considering. A rotated die error occurs when the obverse and reverse designs are not properly aligned. When you flip such a coin, the reverse may appear rotated relative to the obverse. While small rotations are sometimes tolerated, extreme rotations are far less common and far more desirable. Surface anomalies can also play a significant role in driving value. Improper metal flow during striking can create unusual textures, striations, or areas of weakness. Environmental factors during production, such as debris or grease on the die, can result in missing or distorted design elements. A grease-filled die, for example, can cause letters or details to. Now my dears, we are talking about a single coin, a humble 1-cent piece from Canada, dated 1994, bearing the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II and the small but significant initials KG. At first glance, this coin looks like something you may have seen countless times, something you may have once spent without a second thought. Yet behind its familiar appearance lies a world of mystery, errors, rare possibilities, and incredible stories that have led some collectors and researchers to imagine values as high as $1,640,000,000, an almost unbelievable figure when compared to its tiny face value. The year 1994 places this coin in a fascinating period of Canadian numismatic history. Canada was still using the 1-cent coin widely in daily transactions. The Royal Canadian Mint was producing massive quantities of cents to meet demand, and the focus was on efficiency, speed, and consistency. When millions upon millions of coins are struck each year, the expectation is that every piece will be identical. This expectation of perfection is precisely what makes errors so fascinating. Any deviation from the standard design or production process becomes a clue, a signal that something unusual occurred during the minting process. The obverse of the 1994 Canadian 1-cent coin features Queen Elizabeth II, whose image had evolved over time as new portraits were introduced to reflect different stages of her reign. By 1994, her portrait was familiar to Canadians and collectors alike, representing continuity, stability, and tradition. The initials KG, belonging to the designer, appear subtly as part of the design. These small initials are often overlooked, yet they can become critically important when something goes wrong. Even the slightest variation in lettering, spacing, or shape can point to a rare die error or production anomaly. On the reverse, the iconic maple leaves symbolize Canada itself. The design is simple, elegant, and deeply rooted in national identity. Because this design was used for many years, collectors are very familiar with what it should look like. That familiarity makes it easier to spot when something is off, when a leaf looks distorted, when veins are missing, when edges appear weak, or when the lettering does not match expectations. The metal composition of the 1994 1-cent coin was primarily bronze, made up mostly of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. This composition gave the coin its characteristic color, weight, and feel. However, metal preparation is not always perfectly uniform. Variations in alloy mixing, rolling thickness, and blank cutting can all lead to subtle differences. In most cases, these differences are within acceptable tolerances and go unnoticed. But occasionally, a blank planchet falls outside those tolerances, and if it is struck anyway, the resulting coin becomes something special. Planchet errors are among the most exciting possibilities for collectors. A planchet that is too thin, too thick, or made from the wrong alloy can result in a coin that looks and feels different. A 1994 cent struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, or even a foreign coin, would immediately stand out. Its weight might be noticeably heavier or lighter. Its color could be unusual. The sound it makes when dropped could be different. These types of errors are extremely rare because modern minting processes are designed to prevent them, yet history shows that they do sometimes occur. Another fascinating category of errors involves the striking process itself. When a coin is struck, it is placed between two dies and hit with tremendous force. This process is repeated thousands of times per hour. If a planchet is not properly aligned, the strike can be off-center, leaving part of the design missing and part of the blank visible. Minor off-center strikes are known, but dramatic examples where a large portion of the design is shifted are far more rare and valuable. Broad strikes occur when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place fails to function correctly. Without the collar, the metal spreads outward, creating a coin that is wider than normal and often lacks a defined rim. Multiple strikes can happen if a coin fails to eject properly and is struck more than once. These multiple impressions can overlap in strange and fascinating ways, creating ghostly images and distorted designs that captivate collectors. Die errors open up an entirely different realm of possibilities. Dies are made by impressing a hub into a steel blank, and this process can introduce errors from the very beginning. A double die occurs when the hub impresses the die more than once at slightly different angles or positions. This results in doubling that is part of the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that die will show the same doubling. Doubling can appear on numbers, letters, portrait features, or even small details like the KG initials. If a double D. My very respectable coin collectors, now we're diving into the fascinating world of a small, seemingly insignificant coin that has captured the imagination of collectors and enthusiasts alike, the 2005 Canadian 1-cent piece bearing the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II and the designer initials KG. At first glance, this coin may look like a coin you have seen 100 times, something you may have spent, saved in a jar, or overlooked completely. But hidden within its unassuming form is a universe of possibilities: errors, minting mistakes, unusual die occurrences, and the rarest of production anomalies that, in the minds of collectors and theorists, could lead to a value as high as $1,580,000,000, a figure almost inconceivable when compared to the coin's face value of just 1 cent. The year 2005 is an interesting period in Canadian numismatics. Canada was still using the 1-cent coin in everyday transactions, though the discussion of eliminating the penny was already in the air. The Royal Canadian Mint was producing millions of these coins with the utmost efficiency, aiming for perfection in both design and production. When millions of coins are struck each year, uniformity is expected, and any deviation from that uniformity becomes noteworthy. The very expectation of perfection is what makes minting errors so compelling, because they occur despite decades of technological precision and quality control. The obverse of the 2005 Canadian 1-cent coin features a familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, which by this time had been a symbol of continuity and tradition for decades. The initials KG, small and often overlooked, represent the designer and appear subtly within the portrait. These small details can become crucial for collectors when errors or anomalies occur, because even slight variations in these initials can indicate a rare die variation or an unusual production circumstance. On the reverse, the iconic maple leaf design conveys simplicity, beauty, and national symbolism. When the design is familiar to millions of collectors, even the smallest deviation stands out immediately. A missing detail, an irregular edge, or a distortion in the veins of the maple leaf can transform an ordinary coin into an item of significant interest. The reverse also serves as a critical reference point for evaluating striking anomalies and die issues. The composition of the 2005 1-cent coin is primarily bronze, composed mostly of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. This gives the coin its characteristic color and weight. Even though the metal is uniform to the naked eye, small inconsistencies can occur during alloy preparation, rolling, and blanking. Most of these differences are negligible, but occasionally a planchet may deviate from specifications. A coin struck on an improper planchet, perhaps from another denomination or even another country's mint, becomes an exceptional rarity. The physical characteristics of such a coin, including weight, color, and sound, would immediately differentiate it from the millions of ordinary coins produced that year. Striking errors are another fascinating area that could contribute to extraordinary value. During the minting process, a planchet is placed between two dies and struck with tremendous force. If the coin is not properly centered, it may emerge with an off-center strike, where part of the design is missing and the blank planchet is exposed. Broad strikes can occur when the collar that normally contains the planchet fails, causing the metal to spread outward and creating a coin with no defined rim. Multiple strikes are possible if a coin fails to eject properly, resulting in overlapping impressions that produce ghostly or doubled images. Each of these anomalies has the potential to elevate a coin from ordinary to extraordinary. Die errors also present remarkable opportunities for collectors. Dies are the tools that imprint the coin's design onto the planchet, and they can wear, crack, chip, or even receive multiple impressions from the hub. A double die, where the die receives two misaligned impressions, produces a coin that appears to have duplicated features, such as numbers, letters, or parts of the portrait. If a double die were to exist for the 2005 Canadian 1-cent coin, even a limited production run could produce coins of immense rarity and intrigue. Collectors would pay particular attention to doubling on the date, the Queen's features, or the small KG initials. Cracked dies and die chips can also lead to fascinating variations. A crack in a die appears as a raised line on the coin, sometimes running across the portrait, the date, or even the maple leaf design. A die chip, caused by a piece of the die breaking away, results in raised or missing metal on the coin, producing unusual shapes and textures. Coins that show these anomalies can attract significant interest, especially if they are well preserved and clearly show. Dears, we're talking about the 2006 Canadian 1-cent coin, featuring the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by KG, with the initials of the designer subtly included. This coin, a simple penny, represents much more than its face value. Despite being worth just 1 cent in everyday transactions, collectors and numismatists have long speculated that coins like this could reach astronomical figures, and in this case, the value is said to reach as high as $1,560,000,000 in the rarest and most exceptional cases due to errors, mistakes, and mint mark anomalies. At first glance, the 2006 kilograms Canadian penny may look completely ordinary. It is small, copper-colored, and carries the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse side. But the story of this coin goes far beyond its surface. Coins, especially ones produced in the millions, are expected to be uniform, but human history and mechanical limitations ensure that perfection is never fully achieved. Every coin carries the possibility of variations, mistakes, and rare anomalies, making coin collecting both a fascinating and thrilling pursuit. The year 2006 situates this coin in an era when the Canadian penny was still in widespread circulation, though discussions about discontinuing it were already gaining momentum. The Royal Canadian Mint was operating with advanced technology and quality control measures, yet even in modern minting, errors can and do happen. This is part of what makes coins like the 2006 penny so appealing to collectors. Despite modern precision, there are still opportunities for rare and valuable anomalies to emerge. The obverse of this penny features Queen Elizabeth II, a symbol of continuity and historical significance, and one that provides a consistent reference point for collectors. The subtle initials KG, standing for the designer, are an important detail. Even slight differences in these initials can signal a die variation, an error, or a special production anomaly. Many collectors have trained their eyes to look for these minute differences, as they often indicate coins of far greater value than ordinary circulated pennies. On the reverse side, the iconic maple leaf design is simple, elegant, and deeply symbolic of Canada. This reverse design, familiar to anyone who has used Canadian currency, serves as a baseline for identifying anomalies. Any deviation, whether missing details, unusual textures, or distorted edges, can immediately alert collectors to a coin's potential rarity. The maple leaf's veins, its edges, and the lettering around it are all closely examined by experts for any discrepancies that could indicate an error or unusual production occurrence. The metal composition of the 2006 Canadian penny is primarily bronze, consisting mostly of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. Even when the metals are carefully combined, small inconsistencies can occur during preparation, rolling, and blank cutting. Most of these inconsistencies are negligible, but occasionally a planchet may deviate from the intended specifications. Such a planchet might be too thick, too thin, or even composed of the wrong alloy. If a coin is struck on such a planchet, it instantly becomes rare, as most coins are perfectly uniform. Planchet errors are among the most intriguing types of mint anomalies. A planchet that is too thin or too thick may affect the coin's weight, sound, and overall feel. Coins struck on incorrect planchets from different denominations, or even from foreign mints, are extremely rare and highly sought after. The 2006 penny, if struck on such a planchet, could exhibit unusual color, texture, or weight, immediately differentiating it from the millions of other coins produced that year. Another major category of interest is striking errors. When a coin is struck, the planchet is placed between two dies and hit with immense pressure. If it is misaligned, it can result in an off-center strike where part of the design is missing, leaving the blank surface exposed. Broad strikes occur when the collar, which normally constrains the planchet, fails, causing the metal to spread outwards and produce a coin without a defined rim. Multiple strikes can happen if a coin fails to eject properly, resulting in overlapping impressions that create ghost images or doubled features. Each of these anomalies can dramatically increase the interest and value of a coin. Die errors are particularly significant. The dies used to strike coins can develop cracks, chips, or even doubling during production. A double die error occurs when a die is struck more than once with slight misalignment, producing a coin that appears to have doubled features in lettering, numerals, or even the Queen's portrait. In the case of the 2006 kilograms penny, a double die on the date, the initials, or the maple leaves could make the coin extremely rare and valuable. Cracked dies produce raised lines on the coin where metal has filled. My great friends, now we're diving into the world of a seemingly ordinary Canadian penny, yet one that holds extraordinary potential and intrigue, the 2009 kilograms Canadian 1-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II. At first glance, this coin appears unremarkable, just like any other penny you may have come across in your wallet, pocket, or loose change jar. Yet, hidden within its small size and familiar design is a universe of possibilities: errors, mint mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and rare production occurrences that make it a coin of immense fascination. In fact, estimates place the potential value of exceptional versions of this coin at as high as $1,500,000,000, a staggering number when compared to its face value of a single cent. The year 2009 is particularly interesting for Canadian numismatics. The Royal Canadian Mint had been producing billions of pennies over the decades, yet discussions regarding the elimination of the penny from circulation were beginning to intensify. This context makes the 2009 kilograms penny a snapshot of a pivotal moment in Canadian currency history. Despite the widespread production of coins, even the most advanced mints are not immune to errors, which is precisely what allows ordinary coins to sometimes become extraordinary. Every coin carries the potential for deviation from perfection, whether through die anomalies, striking errors, planchet issues, or post-mint accidents. The obverse of the 2009 kilograms Canadian penny features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, a familiar and enduring symbol of Canada's history, stability, and connection to the monarchy. The small initials KG, which represent the designer of the portrait, are placed subtly on the coin but carry tremendous significance for collectors. Even the slightest irregularity in these initials can indicate a unique die, a misalignment during production, or other anomalies that increase the coin's rarity. Collectors often scrutinize these initials meticulously because small variations can dramatically affect the coin's value. On the reverse side, the coin bears the iconic maple leaf design, a symbol recognized around the world as uniquely Canadian. The maple leaf's veins, the shape of its edges, and the surrounding lettering are all areas where anomalies can occur. When any part of this design appears irregular, whether through missing elements, distortions, or raised areas caused by die chips or cracks, it can signal a rare and highly valuable error. The familiarity of this design to collectors makes deviations instantly noticeable, and those deviations are often what drive the extreme value of certain coins. The 2009 penny is made primarily of copper-plated zinc, a composition that gives it its characteristic color and feel. While modern minting technology ensures near-perfect consistency, slight variations in the alloy, planchet thickness, or rolling process can occur. These minute deviations are usually imperceptible but can sometimes result in coins that are distinct from the standard issues. A coin struck on a planchet with incorrect metal composition, or one that was too thick, too thin, or from another batch entirely, instantly becomes rare and highly sought after by collectors. Planchet errors are among the most fascinating anomalies. A planchet that is too thick or too thin can affect the coin's weight, sound, and overall appearance. Planchets intended for other denominations or produced from slightly different alloys can result in coins that look unusual, feel different, and may even appear in a slightly different color. For example, a 2009 kilograms penny struck on an anomalous planchet could show subtle color variations, unusual textures, or other irregularities that immediately draw attention and create intrigue in the numismatic community. Striking errors are another area where extraordinary coins are born. During minting, a coin is struck by a pair of dies with tremendous force. If the coin is misaligned in the press, it may emerge as an off-center strike, with part of the design missing and portions of the blank planchet exposed. Broad strikes occur when the collar, which normally holds the planchet in place, fails, allowing the metal to spread outward and create a coin without a defined rim. Multiple strikes are possible if a coin fails to eject properly, producing overlapping impressions that create ghost images or doubled features. Each of these anomalies significantly increases the rarity and potential value of a coin. Die errors also contribute heavily to the desirability of coins like the 2009 kilograms penny. Dies, the tools used to strike coins, are subject to wear, cracking, chipping, and even multiple impressions. A double die occurs when a die receives two slightly misaligned impressions, producing a coin that shows duplication in letters, numbers, or design features. If such an error were to occur on a 2009 penny, especially on key features such as the date, the Queen's portrait, or